and listen to how these men transform a few keystrokes into our favorite film scores.
Writing music for film, it's an art form. Sometimes I'll hear things in my head, and literally I will jot while I'm watching the film for the first time. It's rare. It's rare that anything I jot down actually ends up being what I use. But that's usually the way I do it. I'll start to hear things and I'll write them down. Then I'll go watch a film again once or twice by myself. And then I'll literally, in this room, start to write specific pieces for specific pieces of the film. So that's my process. I call it, you know, sort of writing some music and seeing what sticks.
Today's film composers benefit from amazing tools that help them turn those ideas into reality.
I have on my computer at my fingertips a virtual orchestra. And you can see it's a little hard to read, but it's grouped. Strings, and then it goes down to woodwinds, and it's quite massive. I perform everything that you're hearing by hand. So instead of going with pencil and paper and writing out the string tremolando or the piccolo runs I do it here virtually, so that it comes out as a simulation of what it will sound like with the orchestra. And so I'll play you a little bit of what it will sound like. This is all synthetic, and it sounds like this. And then this one ends.
Just like composers, every film director has a unique perspective on film music. And veteran John Debney has heard them all, having worked on blockbusters like Bruce Almighty, Elf.
How long do you think you'll be with us?
I was thinking like forever.
And both Princess Diaries movies.
It's interesting. I'll go from director to director. Let's say from Princess Diaries 2, which I just completed, to the film I'm working on now, which is called Christmas at the Cranks. Its other title is Skipping Christmas. It's a great book. And I love both directors. Gary Marshall has his way of doing things. Joe Roth has his way of doing things. Joe Roth wants very specific punctuations. And to him, it's like, well, of course, yeah, do that. And other directors, like a Gary Marshall, may not want that. There are no hard and fast rules.
Debney also got to stretch himself with one of the year's biggest hits, The Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson.
There were times when he wanted me to be more free than I've ever been. And other times when he wanted to be very, very careful and precise with each moment. It was very interesting. It's much different for me. That process with Mel was much different than most of the directors that I've worked with. And yet ultimately I feel that Mel pulled out of me some of my best work. I'm asked very often to provide music out of fear that something isn't playing right. I don't mind doing that. That's my job. I'd rather write the piece of music and they not use it than, than not. Because you also don't want to get caught. And if, let's say, I convince a director to not put music in, all of a sudden they get on the dubbing stage, and there are other people now involved, then they're saying, well, why isn't there music here? So I would rather, and most times, I will give directors extra music or alternate takes under that heading. It's hard many times because I will, very many times, write what I think is the theme, and then the director doesn't think it's the theme, and he'll like the other theme. So sometimes it's kind of heartbreaking, but then you divorce yourself very quickly from that because I may still think that the theme was the right one, and maybe I'm right, but the point is, it's collaborative. Film is a collaborative art. We do the best we can as artists within a very structured, sometimes confining business. But nonetheless, you can't give up, and I always tell these young composers, you have to develop yourself as an artist and do the very, very best you can, and hopefully that shines through. Writing music for film, it's an art form. That's sort of my philosophy in a nutshell, and I think that's why certain of these wonderful men and women create this such high art that will live on, because, and again, especially guys like John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, I think we'll be playing their music in 100 years. And that's an amazing tribute.